but the ultimate goal is to ensure we have entrenched the fund in the Constitution in such a way that in the future, nobody can come back and claim that the fund is unconstitutional.
Let me give the Honorable Millie Odhiambo, then I'll come to you, Honorable Osoro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, I just want to inform Senior Counsel Honorable Odhiambo that part of the reason they're having problems is the entire legal team was men. There's no women, and yet there are brilliant women lawyers like me in this house. Next time, put us there, and we'll help you. Secondly, Madam Speaker, in areas that have been predominantly opposition, the only fund you can rely on that is changing lives is CDF. Third, Madam Speaker, in my own constituency, I have seen us move from mud-walled, grass-thatched schools to permanent schools. I would want to encourage the judges and people who live in cities to do an immersion in the village so that they know the reality. A lot of people do not know the reality on the ground. The people who are posh in cities, the lawyers and the ones who are lofty, go to the ground and learn the reality. Madam Speaker, I would also want to say that in relation to the law, our judges, especially Supreme Court, have been very liberal and progressive in interpretation of the Constitution. That is why they even interpreted the Constitution to include gay rights. But when it comes to development, then they start telling you, Montesquieu, separation of powers. I have no problem with separation of powers as espoused by Montesquieu many years back. But Montesquieu does not come from my village, Kolo in Rusinga Island. He does not know what people go through. That is a very good concept, but something good is finally coming out of Africa, which is the issue of Ng-Cdf. Development. And Madam Speaker, I was just discussing with Honorable Odhiambo that we must be brave as lawyers. And if there is one legacy we must leave in this house, is to entrench the fourth role of a member of parliament in this country, which is development. If it does not come through Ng-Cdf, it will come through my pocket. That is the reality. And the members that came before us were overwhelmed. That is why they promoted this. Right now, the role of MPs has totally been removed. But MPs are still being harassed. Put it and make MPs have a role. I have no excuse. Anybody can bash me what they want. But as an intellectual and as a bright lawyer, this is one thing I am willing to defend to my grave. Bora usiguze Ng-Cdf. Wengine wanasema bora usiguze Mlima, mimi bora usiguze Ng-Cdf. Hapo tutapigana.
The Honorable Member for South Mugirango, Honorable Silvanus Osoro.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to associate myself with the sentiments that have been made by my colleagues. And I also do not want to delve so much on the judgment that was delivered last week, because I've actually gone through it. In all aspects, I'm actually against it by all standards, because it actually does not meet jurisprudential, authority in all aspects. I mean, the learned judges, Honorable Speaker, only focused on what we call the school of thought in jurisprudence that we call positivism, where they are so keen on unnecessary positivism and they ignore the element in a very social matter, ignore the socialism jurisprudence, ignore the natural law in all aspects, Honorable Speaker. But I do not want to go that direction, Honorable Speaker. But of importance, Honorable Speaker, for me, it is the character of the Council of Governors. Honorable Speaker, Ng-Cdf is 2.5% of the national budget. Each constituency gets about 130 million thereabout when you do tabulation. County governments get a minimum of 15%. In fact, this house gave them in the last financial year 25% last financial year. About 25 or 26% thereabout. In the last financial year, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, When you do tabulation, you'll realize that in the 2.5% that we get, or the constituencies get in terms of the Ng-Cdf, each constituency gets about 120 million at the highest, or 140 million shillings. Honorable Speaker, with the allocated amounts in the counties, some counties that get about 11 billion in the shared revenue, place in their budget 500 million for the office of the governor's expense. 500 million. But Ng-Cdf for the consumption of the common mwananchi, only 100 million. With 11 billion in some counties, and even some of them getting up to 15 billion, you will actually need a microscope, and I've said this several times, to see what governors do. But they were the first people to go in court, Honorable Speaker. They applied to be interested parties in this matter. They even wrote a letter to the Chief Justice. And in now very common character and demeanor of the current court, Honorable Speaker, they've applied what we call judicial activism, populist rulings, populist judgments, where they now get their jurisprudence from Facebook, from social media, from messages they get, and sometimes from some political leaders who are against very important concepts.
The Honorable Makali Mulu.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to add my voice to this important debate. And without really repeating what my colleagues have said, I want just to raise three issues. The first one, Honorable Speaker, as a person who has a lot of experience in development matters, Honorable Speaker, the Ng-Cdf as a development model has been confirmed to be one of the best in this world. And that's the reason, Honorable Speaker, why a number of assemblies, national assemblies in different countries, have actually come here to benchmark on this model. And I'm surprised when I see our judges being so ignorant about this important model. The second point, Honorable Speaker, is that when you look at the way this model operates, it's only about 5% which goes to administrative expenses. There is no other development model in this world which uses only 5% in terms of, Honorable Speaker, administrative expenses. And I think that's why my colleagues are saying, Honorable Speaker, that the governors and the senators are getting concerned about an issue. Because if you go to the county governments, the recurrent expenditure, Honorable Speaker, goes all the way up to 70%. So, Honorable Speaker, what worries me most is that our judges, Honorable Speaker, who live in this country, and I do expect they also visit their rural setting, should have seen what development has been done through CDF. And more so, Honorable Speaker, the issue of bursaries to the needy students. They can remove the members of parliament from the program, but if the program is good, Honorable Speaker, I would recommend that we retain the program and get a way of keeping the members of parliament out of it. Even now, we are only patrons, Honorable Speaker. We are not implementers. So, Madam Speaker, what worries me most is a situation where instead of our judges fixing what is not working, they want to destroy what is working. That is unfortunate, and we cannot allow that. So I want to urge our honorable members, Honorable Speaker, that we make sure this important fund is entrenched in the Constitution, and this House has the power to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, the ball is in our court. Can we do that as soon as possible so that we bury this matter forever? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Migori, Honorable Fatuma Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the country is mourning and our children are very sad. Ng-Cdf is the reason why parents smile when they see us when we go back home, because they depend on Ng-Cdf. And the court should be aware that this thing does not help a member of parliament at all. We have no business with it. Our business is to give it back to the community where it belongs. It beats logic when the court says that this is unconstitutional. In fact, this should be amongst the 10 commandments of God. It should be the 11th commandment from the human being, because this is the reason why most vulnerable students and children are in school. Members of parliament have always supported these children with their own money. Even the money given by Ng-Cdf is not enough. I can imagine in Nyateke sub-county where I come from, the only business we do there is gold mining. It cannot even support our children to go to school. So we run to our members of parliament to get help so that the children can be in school. Ng-Cdf does not help rich families, it helps poor families. So we are appealing as Kenyans, not as members of parliament, as Kenyans, that this was a wrong move to deny Kenyans and the population of the children an opportunity to be in school. Look at the scenario now. First of all, it is delayed all the time. And then now, it is said it's unconstitutional. So, Madam Speaker, I think that the court needs to sit down and rethink. The judges, I am not against the judges, but I think they should rethink this, reconsider what they said about Ng-Cdf. They are not in contact with the people in the village. Their job, their responsibility makes them detached from Wananchi. But if they were to sit in the village and sit with the locals and drink uji with them, they would understand what parents and the children from the vulnerable families are going through. Ng-Cdf, it's like devolution itself. Without this, we will reach Nairobi, we will reach the Ministry of Education, even to bring a query to that sector for what is going on through our schools, through our students. So I beg that they reconsider, and instead of telling us 2 years, then they rather just disband parliament because we have no business being here. Madam Speaker, it is disappointing, and I'm praying that they change their mind.